Contextual Control of Slot Machine Choice Allocation by Lindsay Ellenberger, Catherine Huggins, Lauren Lang, Caitlin Maston, and Sarah Parkinson and Courtney Wilson. Abstract. The purpose of the current investigation was to evaluate the influence of programmed contextual variables on choice allocation of college students during a simulated slot machine task. The simulated slot machine task was programmed on Visual Basic Programming software. 8 participants were presented with 2 concurrent slot machines, differing along a single contextual dimension of background color, where the overall rate of reinforcement was held constant across both machines. Choice allocation was presented in terms of matching law, and baseline results suggested that participant choice allocation was not under contextual control. Following a relational training procedure that trained red is more than purple, results showed a greater bias towards the red slot machine. This was demonstrated by a deviation from matched responding for all 8 participants. Maintenance of gambling behavior by verbal rules and contextual cues provides a new avenue of research for the reduction of problem gambling behaviors. Introduction. A behavioral account of language and cognition that emphasizes relations among stimuli is known as relational frame theory. Making relations among stimuli is known as relational framing. This is a generalized operant involving a history of reinforcement for responding under contextual control. Relations can be made in terms of coordination, as seen in equivalence relations, or can be more complex, such as frames of comparison, perspective taking, and hierarchy. Relational frame theory, also known as RFT, is an account equipped to address complex world issues as well as socially important behaviors that are relevant to broader and more diverse populations. Gambling disorders have been estimated to affect 0.5 to 7.7% of the world population. Like many addictions, a gambling addiction can often lead to financial problems, relationship conflicts, emotional, psychological distress, decrements to health, cultural harm, reduced performance at work or school, and even criminal activity. Gambling behavior has been successfully reduced or extinguished in previous behavioral research. It has been hypothesized that gambling behavior is maintained by direct contingencies of responding, variables in the environment, verbal behavior, or self-constructed rules. It has been shown that organisms distribute their behavior across choice alternatives according to the matching principle. If response forms and reinforcement remain equivalent for both choices, an animal's response allocations will match the relative rate of reinforcement in place for each alternative. For example, if an individual receives attention from their mom after about 70% of whines and attention from their dad after 30% of whines, he will likely allocate a whining response to his mom 70% of the time and his dad 30% of the time. Matched responding indicates behavior is maintained by those directly obtained reinforcement contingencies. Unmatched responding suggests something else might be controlling response allocation, such as contextual variable in the environment, verbal behavior, or a self-rule. Previous research has focused on direct contingency-based responding, attributing the maintenance of addictive gambling behavior to the matching law. Matching law states that in choice allocation paradigm, rates of response at each alternative is a function of the proportion or ratio of reinforcement received for each response. Research in gambling behaviors is focused on the role of auditory features in slot machine gambling. Physiological responses to near-miss outcomes. Gambling is an extension of natural foraging behavior to the financial environment. Neurological patterns in pathological gamblers. The role of stake and prize levels in relation to gambling and losses disguised as wins and contingency confusion. When individuals do not engage in matched responding by allocating responses based on direct contingencies of reinforcement, another contextual variable is likely maintaining the gambling behavior of the individual. Previous research has analyzed the maintenance of gambling behavior in the context of relational responding, verbal behavior, and contextual cues. demonstrated the use of conditional discrimination and contextual cues to affect subjects' preference to gamble on one slot machine compared to another. This provides evidence that the maintenance of gambling behavior is linked to verbal behavior. Compared to the preference of problem gamblers to non-problem gamblers before and after discrimination trainings that transferred contextual functions associated with arbitrary features of the slot machines. Results showed a significant difference in problem gamblers' ability to reach mastery after relational training, suggesting that problem gamblers may be susceptible to rule formation regardless of outcomes. The current study analyzes gambling behavior using the principles of RFT and choice allocation in terms of matching law. Responses were measures before and after relational training, which was presented to the learner using a frame of comparison, more or less, between colors. The purpose of the current study is to evaluate the influence of program contextual variables on choice allocation of college students during a simulated slot machine task after relational training. In assessing and comparing the variables influencing the student's slot machine preferences, the effects of the matching law will be tested against the effects of contextual control. Methods, participant settings, and materials. 8 undergraduate students, 3 males and 5 females, participated in the current study. All participants were at least 18 years of age. Prior to baseline, participants were asked to fill out the South Oaks gambling screen questionnaire. The SOG scores for the questionnaire indicated that no participant experiences any problem gambling behaviors, although all participants reported some prior experience with some form of gambling. Experimental sessions took place in a large conference room located in a university library. The room contained a large round table, 6 chairs, a laptop that operated as an apparatus, pens, and paper to collect data from observers. Observers also used a cell phone as a timer during trials. Apparatus. The apparatus was a computer programmed in Microsoft Visual Basic 6.0, which controlled the presentation of stimuli and relational training. Figure 1 depicts the 2 slot machines used as the apparatus in the current experiment. The computer was an HP running on Windows operating system with a 15-inch screen and full-size keyboard. The computer screen displayed 2 separate slot machines that were differentiated by having objective appearances and background colors, red or purple. The relational training procedure was operated on PowerPoint and consisted of 13 slides. The South Oaks gambling screen questionnaire was used prior to being exposed to the slot machines in the study. The SOGS is a 20-item questionnaire based on the DSM-3 criteria for pathological gambling. The questionnaire contained items regarding the types of gambling participants have experienced, the largest amount of money they have been willing to gamble, and family demographics in regards to gambling problems. Another area of questions refers to any loans or other methods of personal use of borrowing money. Figure 1 is the 2 concurrently running slot machines used as the apparatus in the current experiment. Procedure, response measurement. Throughout the entire experiment, both slot machines were consistently programmed to reinforce individuals on a VR15 schedule of wins. The primary dependent variable was defined as the participant pressing the spin button on either the red or the purple machine. The independent variable was the completion of a relational training procedure. Pre-test condition. A pre-test condition was completed to collect data on each of the participants' response allocation toward the concurrent simulated slot machines. They were both equal in terms of payoff and only differed between the 2 different colors, red and purple. Observers explained the participants the directions of the slot machines by stating, "First, we are going to give you 2 minutes. Take this time to get familiar with the slot machines and play however you like. We will let you know once your 2 minutes have expired." The slot machines were presented parallel on a computer screen. One slot machine was primarily red in appearance and the other slot machine was primarily purple. Observers counted a response by the participants clicking the spin box of either machine. Within this trial, they were able to play freely between the 2 minutes presented. A response was measured as the participants clicking the mousepad of the computer to either the slot machine's spin box. During the 2-minute condition, participants had no limitation on the number of responses per trial. Relational training. After the slot machine pretest, relational training was then presented to each participant to help establish the relations of greater than and less than with one another. These slides put red and purple in a frame of comparison with one another, where red was trained as a larger than purple and purple was trained as a less than red. During this condition, the experimenters set up the presentation by minimizing the slot machines and putting a PowerPoint in full screen mode on the computer to help eliminate distractions from the participants. Participants were told to complete the slideshow. While going through the slideshow, participants were also asked to produce a response of which color had more value within each slide. This was to ensure that participants understood the different relations. Participants were required to complete 100% of the training procedure before moving on to the study. Participants were able to go through the PowerPoint at the pace they desired. The 2 different stimuli included different shapes, and the pictures that represented a continuum from greater than to less than. Each picture or shape was approximately 3 inches wide on the slideshow.
Silence! That was silent. National joke.
Post-test condition. A post condition was implemented to determine if participants displayed a change in response allocation between the concurrent slot machines after relational training. Participants interacted with the same exact slot machine that they had interacted with in the pretest condition. Slot machine credits were returned to 10,000, which was the default setting. The same response measurement that was used in the pre-training condition was also used in the post-training condition. Participants were again given the instructions similar to what they were told in the pre-test condition. We are going to give you 2 minutes. Take this time, play however you would like. We will let you know once your 2 minutes have expired. This was done so observers could obtain direct comparisons from the pre-test condition.
Always.
Results. Figure 2 displays each of the participants' response allocation across the 2 slot machines during initial exposure in the pretest condition. 6 of the 8 participants spent the duration of the 2 minutes split between the 2 machines evenly. 2 participants spent 100% of their time allocated to the purple slot machine. Participant 3 and 6 showed a preference to the purple slot machine during the pretest condition. All 8 of the participants reached mastery criterion responding in the relational training procedure. Their first 9 slides of the PowerPoint were used in the relational training procedure to teach that red is greater than purple. These 9 slides were distributed in various ways and included animations to allow the participant to produce a response of the answer before being provided the correct response. The remaining 4 slides were test trials with no prompts or feedback. All participants were able to complete mastery criteria, which was set at 100%, correct responding on the last 4 slides. Figure 3. During the post-test condition, all participants showed more allocated spins to the red slot machine, but showed many variations of responding. The responding on the slot machine tasks during post-test conditions are displayed in Figure 3. 3 of the 8 participants showed a preference to the red slot machine, with 100% of spins designated to red. Figure 4 displays participants' number of responses to the red slot machine during the pretest and post-test conditions. Altogether, the participants allocated 11% of their responses to the purple slot machine and 89% to the red machine. Discussion. The results suggest that the relational training phase of the study affected the behavior of the participants when they chose different slot machines after comparative relations were established. Before relational training, 6 of the 8 participants engaged in near-matched responding. This suggests their behavior may have been under the control of the program's schedule of reinforcement. Post-training results indicate that each participant engaged in an increased number of responses to the red slot machine than they did in pre-training. Additionally, each participant allocated more spins to red machines than purple machines in post-training conditions. Because of the reinforcement schedule remained stable throughout the experiment, participants were not engaging in match responding during the post-training condition. This suggests that their gambling behavior was under the control of a verbal rule or verbal behavior acquired during the relational training procedure. The current study expanded upon previous studies that approached gambling disorders using relational frame theory and interpreted using the matching law. This experiment adds to the current research suggesting that relational frame theory can be used to address complex behaviors such as prejudice, attitudes, internet addiction, drug addiction, and gambling addiction. The development and transfer of stimulus function is evident in the post-test gambling task when behavior change occurred based on the relational training procedure. A limitation that must be noted is the subjects used in the research study included a limited variety of participants. All participants were college students. This may have affected the results of the experiment because it only includes a certain population of participants that are currently attending college on campus. With this in mind, future researchers should use participants in various age ranges, job descriptions, and school status. This will allow for further investigation of whether relational training is an effective procedure to change the gambling behavior of other various populations. Additionally, the participants were not recruited in a gambler-rich environment. They were simply college students who did not meet the requirements of gambling of a pathological gambler according to the SOGS questionnaire in the DSM. This could pose a threat to the reliability of the results applying to participants with gambling addictions. Suggests that clinical populations may produce inaccurate results because they do not represent the actual population of interest. Further, the current study included a simulated slot machine program in a larger conference room in a school setting. An interesting direction in the future research would investigate legitimate gamblers in a casino setting in order to establish reliability and generate results that generalize to real-world applications. This suggestion would reveal how relational frames affect the behavior of individuals who exhibit addictive behaviors in gambling contexts. The present data shows evidence of a trained relation exerting control over gambling behavior. However, a predetermined number of spins would increase experimental control. A predetermined number of spins would act as a constant across participants in the study and allow for data that are more reliable. The researchers suggest that future studies should assess the utility in having a program predetermined number of spins allowed per participant. The pre-test post-test design is effective in showing a change in behavior, but a multiple baseline design would incorporate further experimental control. For example, future implications of the study may use an ABCDE design where A is the baseline and the slot machine preference, B the unrelated task, C is a slot machine preference, D is a conditional discrimination training phase, and E is a slot machine preference.